but it's okay. All right. So we're back. We're going live today to share our story. We wanted to kind of come on and just kind of give y'all a feel for what it's like to go through love and relationships and marriage for close to 20 years. So this is my husband, Oswaldo, better known as Oz Simmons, and we just want to share our story with y'all today.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
I mean, first and foremost, we want to thank everybody that's supported us through these hard times. Our heart goes to everybody that's lent out a hand, words of encouragement, anything, any little thing that helped. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Without further ado, we also want to give thanks to the Most High for even bringing us here. Wait for a moment. We just want to give praise to the Most High for not only bringing us here, but allowing us to grow together, build together to this point, up to this point. Like, kept us strong, kept us together, kept us building. And in spite of many obstacles that we've been through, we stepped it together. And we want to emphasize how our belief in the Most High got us here. Not in a religious sense, more in a spiritual sense. We've never really been on the religious aspect of things, I guess. Not to knock it with anybody that takes religion as a part of their life, but it's just something that works for us. And yeah, our story goes back to from childhood all the way now to our parenthood.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll start just kind of with the way that we were born. And the reason why we say that we want to give praise to the Most High is because even when we were born into some really difficult situations and circumstances, but He kept His watch over us even when we were babies. So do you want to start with your birth story, or do you want me to start with mine?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my parents are both from West Africa, from Ghana. And so my parents lived here in San Diego for about, I want to say like 6 years or so before they conceived me and gave birth. When my mother was pregnant and getting ready to give birth, my father traveled back home to Ghana, and his visa had expired, so he was actually stuck in Ghana when he got there. So I physically did not meet my father until I was 6 months of age. But when she gave birth and she had the opportunity to hold me skin to skin immediately after birth, they wanted to clean me up and help her to get situated. So they took me to a nursery. And, you know, it's commonplace, right? You see babies in a nursery, you see them all in their little bin, and they've all got their little pacifier, and they're all wrapped up nice and tight. And it just seems like something very normal. But I was not a normal baby. And what I ended up doing was they put the red pacifier on the other end of the bin. And my mom said that all of the nurses were watching as I inched my way toward it. And so you can actually look this up. It's called the breast crawl. You can look it up on YouTube, where it talks about babies will naturally crawl after they've been born to come to the mother's breast to be able to nurse. And so I did these things instinctively when I was in my bin. And, you know, my dad wasn't at the nursery window. He wasn't there to pick me out and gaze at me when I was born. However, we know for a fact that the Most High was there, and that He did have His hand over us, that He was watching over us even from the very beginning. So tell them a little bit about your mom's situation.
My situation, very similar like hers, except when my mom was about to give birth to me, she was kind of under distress in a way. My father was, he wasn't around during that specific moment when she went into labor. And so she had to go to the hospital. And this is back when she really did not speak any English or even understand a lick of it. So I'm sure she was scared going into the hospital, not knowing how to communicate. And apparently I had to be born via C-section because either I had my cord wrapped around my neck or my head was too big for my mother's pelvis for it to be a natural birth. Anyway, I guess I kept going back to sleep. I guess even in infancy I was being stressed out because my mother was stressed out, so it kind of delayed the process. I don't know if I'm right on that, but anyway, I was born, and it was not until I think the day after my dad came into action. But yeah, I guess we both had similar birth stories. You know, as far as our mothers having to go through it by themselves for that time being.
Right.
Yeah.
And my dad was still in the picture heavily, but he was stuck in another country. So he was trying to navigate all of that, trying to get back to San Diego. I mean, he went through a rough patch. But at this point, both of our mothers just kind of picked things up and kept things moving. And I want to say it was right around 14 years of age that we finally actually crossed paths, as far as we know.
Yeah.
So we have documentation that we were crossing paths. So when we were 14, he was in a step team called African Descent. Men of African Descent. I'm sorry. So so they actually did performances all around San Diego County, and they actually came to Eastlake High School from Southwest High School, and they did a performance, but our stage that day was broken, and that's what helps them to make the awesome sounds that they make when they step. And so they were all really upset. I was in a photography class at the time, and the teacher asked me if I could capture an image of them to put in the yearbook.
It was more so my coach that was really upset for good reason.
He was mad.
For good reason, because they were supposed to have everything set up and prepared for us to be able to perform the way we perform. And so when that wasn't set out right, I guess the stage had some issues, so we were to perform on tables to make it make sense. But we made it happen. But yeah, throughout the course of the performance, yeah, my coach was not having it, and so because he was kind of in an irritated mood, it kind of got us into that mood, and so we were just like, we just want to get this over with and leave. But yeah, I guess she was the one taking our pictures, but our mindset was just, we were checked by then that we weren't even paying attention to anything that was around us, whether it was positive or negative. We were just like, we're here, we want to go.
Just get it done, get it over with, go home, right? Yeah, so that day I kind of had to just like try to get them to smile, which they really didn't for this image, but it was okay. It was a black and white photo. We just took the picture just in one of the hallways, and they were up against like a really plain background, and the picture came out beautiful. I can't begin to describe it, but it was a black and white photo, and they were also dressed in black and white. So the monochrome feel was just everything. And if you know me at all as a photographer, I love monochrome, I love black and white. And so it was something that it just intrigued me. And I used that image for my final project that year. And I even ran it through the printer and everything, put the name on the print. And I got an A on my project, and I was really excited. And I love the photo so much that I put the photo on my wall, and it actually was on my wall for the entire 4 years of high school. And that actually, it's just like, to me, it's mind-blowing, you know, like when you talk about the Most High looking over you and looking after you, and you not even realizing, like that picture of him and those other guys it was on my wall. And out of all the guys in the group, he was the only one that I was like even remotely attracted to at that time. And it wasn't to the extent of like, oh, I'm going to go find out stuff. It wasn't like I was going to go find out like who he was and where he was and all this stuff. But I was just like, you know, he's cute. And so I had that picture on my wall for an entire 4 years, had no idea that he would one day be my husband. And what we ended up doing was So fast forward, because after that day, you never saw the picture again.
No.
After that day, I actually was, yeah, you never saw the picture again. So I had the picture, I ran it through the thing, I did it for my final project, and then from there, it was just kind of like out of sight, out of mind. It was on my wall, you went on with your life, no big deal, right? We had never met. So then, fast forward to when we were about 21 years of age, I was working at the same place as your high school best friend, and he invited me to come out to play Halo with you and your friends. And I grew up playing video games, so I was like, of course, like, yeah, that would be so much fun. So both of them, their cars were out of commission. They asked me if I could pick them up. I picked up his friend. We picked him up. As soon as he got in the car, I was like, but, you know, I was in the position at that time where I was not looking for a relationship. I was really just trying to focus on me, so that I could just get my own stuff together with school and all that. And so we went and we played video games, and he likes to talk crap. So the whole entire time we were there, he was talking a bunch of trash. It's beyond.
Everybody that knows me knows I'm always cool, calm, and collected. But when it comes to games, I talk a whole lot of crap. I mean, if there is a degree for it, I'll be right in the PhD level. Getting under your skin. Like, I will live in your head rent free.
And people were angry. They would get angry. Your friends would get angry.
Like, seething with anger to the point that it got to points where they would hit me up out of the blue and then be like, rematch my house. Because I backed it up. I talked trash, but every game playing, so it got to them even more because they were losing, and Anyway, with her, I knew we both didn't like each other for some reason. I thought she was stuck up.
And I just thought he was rude.
Stand her for some reason.
He kept talking all this trash.
And because of that, I decided to make her life miserable every time I saw her.
He really did.
And
he really did. There were times that we would actually ask our friends, "Is that person gonna be at this party, at this function?"
If we knew that she was gonna be there, I was like, oh.
It's like, likewise, it was not look.
Yeah.
Look. But we went an entire year not liking each other. An entire year not giving each other the time of day or anything like that, until finally, I believe it was at our friend Chap's house, right?
Yes.
Rest in peace. Our good friend Chap, Anthony Brecken, passed away last year. But he was the one in our group of friends who used to bring everyone together. He was like that cog in the middle of the wheel that just held everything tight and always used to reach out and bring the group of friends together. And we were invited to go to a party at his house, and he happened to be there. And I was reluctant at first, but I was like, I'm gonna just go for my friend. Maybe I can hook my friend up with him or something like that, right? So we get there.
Which I had no interest in.
We get there, and he's not interested in my friend. For whatever reason, he's being incredibly kind and considerate and not talking any type of trash, probably because we weren't playing video games.
I was also inebriated.
Heavily.
So that kind of helped just a bit because I was really relaxed. Anyway, I saw her, and I normally talk trash to her, but this time I was like, hey, how you doing? Hope all is well, It's typical.
Completely threw me off, by the way. Completely threw me off because I was like, why is he being nice? I was not ready for that. I was not ready.
Fast forward from that moment, I think it was a couple of weeks after it was a close friend of mine's birthday party that we were trying to plan. It was at a park, so a bunch of people showed up, and she happened to be there. I guess it was towards the tail end of the night that we got together and started talking. In the midst of everybody doing their own thing, we just got to talking, and we started talking about things that we like, all that other stuff. And then in the back of my head, I was like, wow, cool. I remember I kept repeating that in my head. I was like, man, she's pretty cool. And then, I just snap out of it and then go back to whatever I was doing. And I remember even telling my boy at that time, hey, man, this is kind of cool, man. I think I said it like more than a couple of times where he started to catch on, like, hey, man, what you mean? Like, what you mean, bro? And I was like, no, I'm just saying that she's cool. And I kind of left it at that, faking the fun. But it was within that month or so, I guess we were also trying to hook up one of her friends. That close friend of mine with one of her other close friends from high school.
Right.
They're all mutual friends anyway. So all of us being mutual friends, we were trying to link them together.
Right. So we tried to set up like a double date. Not really a double date because we weren't dating, but like we were like, if we create like this opportunity for them to like look at each other differently, like maybe they'll like fall for one another, right? We were playing Cupid and Matchmaker and all that good stuff.
All while we were starting to kind of slowly, get to feel each other like that. But yeah, like she had hit me up. It was more like she tried to hit us up.
Right.
Like you tried to hit me up first, or you tried to get my number.
Right. So I basically decided that I would reach out to my friend, try and see if she wanted to meet my friend, and I thought, you know what, if I can get her to just like get in the same space and have a chance to like just fill him out without any of the external like friends and nonsense and stuff, she'd probably have an opportunity to connect with him more deeply. And he was already feeling her, so I was like, this is gonna be easy. But then we were having conversations daily trying to hook them up, not knowing that we were falling into our own little...
It wasn't daily, it was that one phone call that you had called me about. Like,
the long one.
So we're gonna hook these two up or whatever. And that conversation led to you asking me about my clientele. Like, hey, what's up with your clientele? I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, so by that time, I was 21. By that time, I had dealt with different types of men. And I didn't know what I was walking into at this point. Didn't know if he was single. Didn't know if he had multiple women. Like, didn't know what he was dealing with. So that was the way I approached it. It was kind of like a way to like not feel so attached. Like, oh, what's up with your clientele? So I could be like, oh, okay, you with somebody. Let me keep it moving. But he wasn't with anybody. So of course I'm sitting here like, oh, he's single. None of that.
She hit me with that question. I was like, clientele.
So from there, I started saying, okay, what I want to do is I want to have this conversation with him, but I don't really know, how to talk to him about it. But what I would do is like, I asked him, what's up with his clientele? Are you dating anybody? Are you seeing anybody? Are you interested in anybody? Like trying to just really like weed it all out. Like make sure that there's nobody else in the picture.
I've been out the game for like 2 years around that time too.
So let's just talk about the fact that he had a back injury from football in high school. So when I met him, he would have trouble walking and standing for long periods of time. And when I say long periods of time, I'm talking about 5 minutes longer, right? So 5 minutes is not a long time, especially when you're standing there and it's 5 minutes past. And for me, it felt like nothing, but for him, it felt like the weight of the world.
Yes.
He was struggling with shooting pains down his legs. He was having cramps in his back. Near his spine, like all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. His disc was herniated. The bone was rubbing on bone. I mean, it was bad. This is
before I knew what was wrong with me. It was more like I just thought I had like leg issues or whatever. But by the time I got an MRI, they were saying like my disc was so deteriorated and bulging. It was touching the nerves, so that's what was causing me the pain and walking the way I was walking. Anyway, long story short, I ended up getting that fixed, but during that process of us hooking up, I was mostly in pain the whole time. But,
physical pain.
Physical pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like during that time, we started talking to each other. It's like, wow, this chick is pretty cool. Like, I'm feeling her. And you know how they always say it's the one that you least expect? Well, that was it. Because I was like, at one minute, I was like, I can't stand her. And then the next one, I'm just like, hey. What's going on?
Right.
And so, fast forward a couple weeks go by, I found a show that's coming into town, Joe Scott. And I was like, oh man, this would be perfect. Like we were supposed to all link up, kind of like double date, go to the show, and then last minute, my buddy and her, I get a notification that the concert's canceled.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do after that. I'm like, damn, I had it planned out and everything, and now it's canceled. So I'm like, all right. So I just kind of went on an impromptu hangout spot, whatever, Mission Beach, whatever.
Well, first we went to the park by my mom's house. Remember?
No, that was way after.
Way after.
Yeah, that was way after.
That wasn't the same night. I got the phone call.
No, that was like
another time.
That was like 3 or 4 nights after.
Okay.
No, it wasn't the same night.
Not the same night.
So that night we chilled. I think we kissed.
Yeah, for the first time.
It was not until a couple of days after that chilled right by your mom's house, the park.
Oh yes.
That you got a specific phone call.
So, what we didn't mention a few minutes ago is that, and I asked him about his clientele. He asked me about me. He was like, and I was coming out of a really messy relationship. I had been cheated on multiple times. I had dealt with some other really hardcore stuff in that relationship that I was like, I need to be alone and discover myself before I can really be in another relationship. So when we were kind of just in the space of getting to know one another and also developing that oh, I am actually interested in this person, that was when we were going to go to the concert, and then we ended up kind of oh, we actually do have feelings for one another. So when I got the phone call, prior to that, on those phone conversations that we had that were between 3 and 5 hours, we did not have a single short phone call. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like talking on the phone.
And this is what I recommend to these young people now. Y'all need to talk on the phone. That's the only way to really get to know each other, right?
Even now.
Even today. Even with the internet. Don't text.
No, I'm just
talk
saying,
on the phone.
even now, I don't like talking on the phone.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'd rather see you face to face and stuff like that. But
So I got this phone call. We were sitting here at so I'm going to backtrack. So
she tried to ignore it.
Wait, before that, during the conversations, he had told me about a woman that he was dating who, at the dinner table, while they were on their date, she picked up a phone call from her ex-man. And I was just mind boggled. I'm like, how could she do something like that? That's crazy, right? Okay, so fast forward.
With me, as she was taking the call, I was like, I'm taking her ass home.
That was the moment she knew she messed up.
I was not going to get upset or anything like that. I was just like, okay.
She let you know.
Made my decision a lot easier. So I was like, took her home, and I remember she was trying to hit me up hey, what's going on? You got your priorities straight. I got mine.
Exactly. And so when I got a phone call that night when we were at the park by my mom's house, it was my ex. And the first time it rang and I looked at the phone and I'm like, yeah, that's not what I want anymore. And I knew that very clearly because of the difference in the way that we related to one another versus how I related to my ex. And so the phone rang again. After it had stopped ringing, it rang again. And I didn't pick that one up either. So in his mind, it was green check, right? Green flag.
Well,
in a little bit. It was okay,
the caution flag.
The caution flag. Okay, the caution flag.
Why is she ignoring the phone call? But I was just like, all right, whatever,
Right.
But it was I think the next time he called that he actually picked up, and I sat back and I was like, I want to see how she feels with this,
Right.
But
so then probably a week later, my ex tried to hit me up telling me that he wanted to come to California, and And I probably was like, don't waste your money. You don't have to come see me. He asked me if I found somebody else. I said yes. And that was the end of the conversation.
But before that, after she had answered the phone after she got off, that's when I was like, all right, let me just break something down to you. And I was like, obviously you have some things you have to deal with, handle. So I was like, you go handle what you gotta handle. But I had to reassure her how I felt. So I had to let her know, I'm feeling you. I'm liking where this is going. I pretty much told her how I felt about her, just so she has a clear view of how I looked at her. Like, you're definitely it for me. However, you still have a lot of stuff that you have to deal with to close that chapter or to reopen it or whatever. So I told her, you go handle what you got to handle, and if you go back, cool. That time. Our time with each other was cool, while it lasted. No hard feelings, all good. If you want to continue this journey, let me know, hit me up, and then we can continue this journey. We can build from there.
Right.
Otherwise, and yeah, I mean, she took it all in, and it's kind of shocking for her because
nobody's ever established boundaries with me before, and so it made me have to really step back and think about like the choices I was making and the life that I wanted and the future that I wanted that was not far away. I was already 23 by the time we were really talking seriously. And so I just...
The way I looked at it was like, I'm not about to waste my time. I'm going to let her know how I feel and where my mind's at. If this ain't it, then this ain't it. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, please be with me. I'm like, no, I'm just not playing those games. It's like, you're either with me or you're not. It's that simple. If you don't, cool, go do you. If so, then let me know. I know that's unconventional, but she was the one coming out of a relationship. I wasn't. I had already done my thing.
And that, if you hadn't actually set those clear boundaries, then yeah, it would have left wiggle room for me to still try to decide like what I really wanted. But because you were like, this is what I want. Well, and let me go back to the fact that when we first spoke on the phone, the very first thing that I said when he asked me about relationships and all that was that I wanted to be married. And I wanted to have children and I wanted to start a family. Those were the top 3 things that came out of my mouth when he asked me what I was looking for. So it wasn't, oh, I want to hang out. It wasn't, oh, well, I'm just trying to have a good time. It wasn't any of that. It was... We
had established what we wanted.
Yes.
And so we made that happen.
Yes. And so fast forward to... A week later, I mean, we were literally... A week later, I had to go to Brazil. And I went there for 2 weeks. But before we left, I needed to know. He was getting his hair braided by a friend of ours, and I needed to know, like, am I going here single? Am I going here with a man, you know?
Also, another mutual friend of ours who ended up braiding my hair and doing her hair
for the wedding. Yeah.
But yeah, I was getting my hair braided, and then she had called me up. I was like, hey, what's up? And, it had been a week or so, a week and a half, something like that. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I hit him up, and we were chatting for a few minutes, and I was just like, so what's the deal? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you gonna be my man or what? Like, I mean, we done talked about we want to get married, we want to have children, we want to have this family, we have dreams and goals and aspirations, we want to travel, like, what's good?
And to me, I was like, she hit me straight with the, straightforward, and I was like, well, damn, if you put it like that, all right, then cool. To me, it's almost like she knows what she wants. And so after I told her what I wanted, or how I see things, then I was just like, it was an easy decision for me. I was like, all right, cool, say less. And been together ever since. I mean,
And happily.
we've had our ups and downs like any other couple. But
Yes.
It's never been to that point where we're like, okay, I'm done with you.
No,
That's
and even the times when we've had like we've only ever had like maybe one heated argument. But that was because we had no reason to fight about anything else. Like everything else we already knew going into like what we wanted and what were the goals. But I think the argument that I can't remember what we fought about. But the arguments we typically have were like, I'm mad because he left his socks on the floor and didn't put them in the laundry. Like that's like legitimately like that's the only
this day.
No, today I go and pick them up because I know you're not going to put them in the laundry. It's part of my morning routine. I just go pick up the socks. But I'll say that yes, it's been ups and downs, but the downs have never been as deep as the highs have been high.
Yes.
So it's like anytime we go down, yeah, we go down, but we always come right back up. We always come up together. We always make sure to check in with each other when we're not feeling it or if something's off. We always check in with one another. And I think that was what drew him to me because I was very nurturing. Like I came in out the gate, like, what do you need? Because you're back. Like,
well, even with the people that we know or have relationships with, we can always feel an easy energy if we're around people that, let's say, we feel unwelcome, or we're not, really vibing with those people. Either one of us has a good way of kind of discerning that. Like we pick up on that really quick. And like, okay, so. Hey.
And he's very observant. So once he starts to see something off, like he'll let me know immediately.
Yeah, I'll remove myself from that situation really quick.
Exactly. And I was never like that. I grew up as more of like a people pleaser. So I would leave myself in bad situations because I just thought I was supposed to be there. Yeah. When he showed me like, no, you got to kind of really look at what's going on. And like, do those people genuinely care about you? Or are they just there because you're there and they know that they can get something from you? Or they can, like steal from your energy. Or they're just tolerating you. Exactly. And those were things that I could not see beforehand. Like he was able to really show me the difference between those things. And I think that's like something super important for like picking friends and relationships like that we don't learn as women growing up. We are not taught how to pick good friends and how to put ourselves around people who value us because we're not taught how to value ourselves, right? So yeah, from that point on, we were together at 8 months into the relationship. Well, no, so about 5 months into the relationship, he bought me a promise ring just to signify like the reassurance that he wanted to marry me and that he, that he's committed to me and things like that. And then right around, I want to say 8 months into the relationship, we started a premarital counseling program. And that program, more than anything, like to this day, is the number one thing that we recommend to people is that they get premarital counseling. And the reason is because there are questions you will ask in those counseling sessions that you would never ask on a date. There are questions that are far beyond the normal mindset around dating and relationships.
Mind you, this is all new to me. As far as premarital counseling and all that other stuff. I've had counseling over the course of my life, but never in this sense. Not to mention like being in a church setting, stuff like that, and visiting her church for the first time. I was kind of like thrown back, like, oh my gosh. Well, it was my first time being in a mega church, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. So, this is different.
Very, very different.
But yeah, I mean, just based on my upbringing, I've never been around that, so it was different. But in the midst of being in a different setting, you run across a lot of good, genuine people.
Yes.
I can't say nothing bad about any of those people that we met. Even when we went to Brazil as a couple.
Yes.
During that time, we were young, so we didn't really get to really take in all the things that were, all the good things that were happening. I didn't get to appreciate it, or we kind of sort of took for granted those people when we were down there. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, those people were really genuine, heartwarming people, you know. Especially the host that brought us in,
Yes.
him and his wife, his family, everybody, like nothing but love, for sure. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be in the place that we're in as far as, you know, what we wanted in the relationship. We could totally use that blueprint that they had as far as that relationship that they had for any relationship, you know.
Yes.
They kept it together and they kept building, regardless of any negative or positive. They kept it moving. They kept the wheels turning.
And they also, like, they used the fact that they were in another country doing missionary work. They used that to bring people even together even more. So they would have different parts of the family come out and help with different parts of the mission and things like that. And so for us, like, we always wanted to travel so that we could help people. Like, we always wanted to travel so we could, like, work in like an orphanage or do different things like that. That's just who we are. And so we have the opportunity to do that with that particular church. Not to say that that's the only way we would want to do it, like only through a church organization, but we still see ourselves using our gifts and our talents to impact communities like that, you know, communities that are either full of orphans or widows and things like that. We want to use our skill set to be able to benefit the needy. And so that's not something that, you know, most people want to do. So it's not something that's popular. So it requires a lot of effort on our end to see where we can plug in and where we can help. So
shout out to Dan and Kathy.
Yes. The missionaries who helped us.
The people
from Shadow Mountain.
Awesome human beings.
Genuinely awesome, good people. Bilingual or trilingual at this point.
Yeah.
And helped us also. We ended up picking up Portuguese while we were there. We don't speak it fluently now. He's more intermediate. I'm probably like more beginner. But we were able to pick it up to the point that we were communicating with people before we left. For 30 days, we were around people who couldn't speak English.
Shout out to Rebecca's family.
Rebecca, that's right. And so we just were really grateful. And after we went to the Brazil mission trip, so we got engaged right before we went on the mission trip. So then we went on the mission trip. We were there for 30 days. Then when we came back, we started planning the wedding. And we were engaged for 11 months before we got married. So we got engaged on my birthday in April of 2005, and then we got married in March 18th of 2006. And then from there, everything was just like, kind of like, okay, we did it. We're married. Now what? And so we wanted to have children. We didn't want to have children right away, so we waited a little bit. And then we enjoyed being married for about, I want to say like 13 months, something like that. To this day, like, I still feel like it was too short, but I still am thankful for the way that we had our babies.
It just feels short because it was without children.
Yes.
As soon as children came in, everything was just...
It's just like a straight tornado. Everything's upside down.
That time that we had without the children, it was like a blur.
Very much so.
That's why we always tell people that don't have children yet, that they get married, like, enjoy being married first. Do what you gotta do, travel, whatever, and then have children. So you guys get to know each other as a couple before you get married, and as a couple after you get married.
Right.
It's really, really important.
So important. And I think also after having children, but that's further on in our story. So so from there, we ended up having, we got pregnant, we conceived right around the same time that I had to have carpal tunnel surgery. So in 2006, I had carpal tunnel surgery, and he ended up getting back surgery. And then shortly after that, we had our first baby. So I was pregnant during that whole time.
Mind you, during that course of those 2 or 3 months, the Most High really kept us, because during the course of those 2 or 3 months when I was getting ready for back surgery, they also found other health issues with me. You know, during that pre-op, right before they give you, before they start working on you, they start going through my charts and they're like, your sugar's kind of high. Did you have anything before you got here? And I was just like, I just had a Jolly Rancher, you know, not thinking
it could be something serious.
Something serious. It was not until it was supposed to be a 4-hour back surgery. It ended up being an 8-hour surgery because my sugar levels kept going up and down, and yeah, and I recovered coming to, all just jacked up. And they're like, "Yeah, you're diabetic." And I was just like, "Whoa, what?"
Yeah. Imagine going into surgery, being totally fine, and then you come out and
Not
they're
to
like,
mention,
you have diabetes.
4 or 5 months later, our oldest, our first child, was born. So
Right.
I'm learning all this in the midst of all that. I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute. What?
Right. And like when even you getting your surgery, like that was like a complete miracle because you were already on a wait list and you still had like another 2 months just to wait for like the initial
And
examination.
Had I waited even longer, I could have got worse as far as my health goes
The diabetes.
Without even knowing.
Exactly.
So that was just, that was a miracle.
Completely.
The way it happened, I was supposed to wait like a whole month to get prepared for a surgery. And within a couple of days, it hit me up. Somebody had canceled. They're like, "Hey, we can squeeze you in the next day." I was like, "Whoa, wait, what?"
Literally the next day he was going in for surgery.
So, yeah, that's how. From that point on, everything just started falling into place. Like during that surgery, it was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. The recovery was such a blessing because by the time the surgery happened in August, our son was born the first week of November. By that time, I was already walking a little bit. I had a back brace, but I was, recovering slowly but surely. And I was able to hold him and all that other stuff, help her with the birth and all that. And yeah, everything happened for a reason, but we've always been looked over, in a spiritual sense.
And that's the reason why, if you've heard of my book, Latch the Gap, that's the reason why I talk so much about the spiritual, because I think when it comes to giving birth, too many times we focus on the physical, we focus on the mental, the emotional, but no one ever really talks about the spiritual aspects that go into having a baby, both on the father and the mother's side. There's a lot of spiritual aspects that play into it, right? As women, we are literally portals bringing spirit beings into this world. So you can't discredit the fact that there are spiritual tendencies and things that tie in.
Yeah.
And for us, very much so, it did that. So, yeah, do you want to keep going or what do you want to do?
Stay tuned for part 2.
Part 2 coming up. Y'all have a good one. Bye.
Peace. Okay, we should